I want you to succeed at things that you never thought were possible, and I want you to fail at things that you never thought were possible. But I just want you to take that failure and move forward. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Imperfect podcast. I am your host, El Ray. It has been an absolutely crazy week. Well, not really. It was calm until today, where 2 hours ago I literally got this wisdom tooth removed because I couldn't go to sleep last night at 2 o'clock in the morning. So I had to make that happen. So I'm going to tough through it tonight because we have a great guest. For most of you guys who don't know, my daughter Jasmine actually was diagnosed with autism at 2. And as we go along and I learn to parent, having parented, 2 kids before her, you learn more stuff every day. And I'm obviously not the only person going through this same thing. So everybody else is out in the world, whether you are personally or not, whether you know somebody that is or not, I decided this week we'll bring in what I personally consider a pro when it comes to this thing, and she'll give us a little bit more information on what she's doing. It is actually the principal of the Autism Inspired Academy, new Autism Inspired Academy, Cher Harris. I'll bring her in right now. Give me 1 second. There she is. How are you tonight?
Good, thank you, thank
Did I
you.
miss
Doing
anything in my
well.
intro?
No, you did not. No.
How is everything? With the craziness going on.
Yeah, everything's going really well. It's been overwhelming the last couple of months. Super excited to get open and get our kids in school and just start our school up. And it's been a really amazing
I
journey.
feel like there's so much information online right now, that I don't know when we're even opening. Like one day it's like other state is opening and now, and some other state is opening. And then I think the last thing I saw today was a 1 week delay, or is your school different?
No, so our school's different. We actually follow we're bound by the state. So we follow the Florida Department of Education, like for the state of Florida, and obviously keep the safety of our students and staff first and foremost. But we're opening August 24th with the same date as Pinellas County Schools. We try to follow their calendar as close as possible.
Okay. So this is a question I've been asking myself for years. What is your background? What is your nationality? Where are you from?
So I actually was born in England back in '83. And I lived there for the first 10 years of my life. And then my dad, who's African American, my mom is white, she's British, and my dad is American. And so he lost his job. He worked for British Aerospace. And my mom was like, let's try to go to America and see what opportunity that brings. So we actually moved over to Washington State and we kind of bounced around. We lived there for a little while. Then we moved to North Carolina, and just a lot of issues and everything going on there for my parents. So they moved down to Florida, and I moved down here when I was about 14, and that's how we ended up down here in Florida. At the time, I hated it. I didn't like it. I wanted to go back with my friends, and I was just so mad at the world for my parents, dragging us down here in the heat. And, we moved into a house that had no AC
Oh
for the
my
first
God.
2 years. Yeah, it was rough, but I came to love it, and then just everything kind of went from there, and ended up staying here and just starting my journey here with in the autism world, basically.
Yeah, that's awesome. Had I known the UK thing, I would have wrote a whole other page on just UK questions that I have alone. Um, well, I mean, personally, my introduction to you, and we moved down here the same type of idea, and all of our kids were mad at us, other than Jasmine, really, because she really is just like, well, whatever happens, I'm there and I'm gonna have fun. But
Yeah,
the
yeah.
older girls had their social lives and everything, and we were in what is I grew up in a top 25 public school, Brookline, Massachusetts, and we moved to Newton, and our kids, Newton is a top 10 public school in the United States, safest city in the United States, and as far as the other girls, they handled them fine. When it came to Jasmine, it was like, let's build a separate room somewhere. and try to tutor
Yeah.
you through a separate room. And I personally came through special education, not obviously at the level of autism, but it was a place where I was put in a position where I didn't have a learning disability. I had ADHD, and I was put with people that had real learning disabilities. So it was like I could be as disruptive as I want, and then bring it all together when it's time to be smart as soon as I want to.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it was kind of a detriment to me because there was nobody pushing me to be, better than I was. And with that being said, it was almost like a 4 year span where Jasmine learned nothing. And when I look at
Yeah.
her growth from when she was younger, everything else was on time, walking on time, spelling on time, saying full words, all the stuff that you expect babies to do on time. And then all of a sudden it was like, boom, they told us that and they put her there. And I couldn't tell whether it was them kind of hindering the situation. So we kind of took her in, brought her in professionals. But to be honest, we didn't see any rapid growth until we came here and she met you.
Yeah, oh, Jasmine, I mean, I love her to death. She's amazing. I'm so excited that she's coming to the school. But yeah, I remember that time when you guys came in, and I remember reading through all of her information. And basically, I just remember the one thing that your wife had told me, and like the information on her plan was just that she didn't, like she would do something and they would remove her from the class, and then she would just be outside of the class. And it was like, and I was like, no, that's not the right thing to do. I mean, once they realize that what they do gets them out of what they don't want to do, then I mean, they're very smart, very intelligent. They'll do that every single
Mm-hmm.
time, And so I remember, meeting Jasmine and her just laughing and just being really like silly and everything. And when she came into the class and she would do something, I'm like, nope, we're going to work through this. And I mean, she learned very quickly that, we're not going to leave the class. We're going to stay in here. We're going to work our hardest, and that we had expectations for her. And I think that's the difference between a good teacher and a great teacher, is that you have these expectations that are high enough where they can obtain them, and then you can keep pushing them forward and helping them thrive. And I mean, that's really why we started the school. I mean, because we want kids to thrive. And I think so many times I talk to parents and they're like, where my son or daughter, they're safe and they're loved. And my business partner and I were like, well, that shouldn't be it. I mean, that's great that they're safe and loved, but what about thriving? What about having a purpose, feeling confident, being self-aware, knowing how to go out into the community and give back to the community? I mean, there's no reason why any of these kids can't do that, but it takes dedication, it takes people believing in them and people teaching them the right way to be able to access
I think,
that.
yeah, I mean, I think that, and we'll move forward to that. It's for anybody that doesn't know, I said in the beginning, Autism Inspired Academy. Actually, during this podcast, I have the link up in the Facebook Live that you can donate to the Autism Inspired Academy as well. If you like the podcast, listen on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube Imperfect Audio, Facebook Imperfect Audio, and then I just added Google Podcasts because somebody told me about it. I feel like depending on somebody's financial situation, they just think like, well, it's fine. They got a place to live, and we can go on. I've worked in Massachusetts and saw somebody just basically hide a grown man at a place I worked, and the family was so rich, and he was just there at a job overnight, forever. Like he didn't like to take planes, he didn't like to take anything. So a lot of those accomplishments, like what you're saying, some people aren't as intuitive as you are with even that statement. It's like they don't know. They don't want to know. They don't want to put in the effort to know what your goal limit is because they feel like it could wear them out. And I believe with teachers the same thing that I believe with police. They should be paid way more and only be able to do it for a certain amount of time because then you develop these preconceptions where it's like, oh, I've seen this before. And everybody's different. You say it to yourself. You want yourself to be different when you look in the mirror, but now when you look at kids, you want to lump them all in the same basket. Did you always want to become a teacher?
No, I didn't. When I first, I mean, in my teen years, I had kind of no idea, but I always wanted to go, had a little bit of income in the medical field, and I actually wanted to be a doctor, a pediatrician, as I kind of got older. And so, I mean, kind of a crazy story. I had like a CVS and just went through jobs like that, Target, CVS, and I went into the military. I got ill. I came out early, and so I was working at a CVS, and I quit one day. I just the CVS had got robbed, and it was like crazy for me, and so I ended up getting a job in the school system working one on one with a child. And the first year, I just was like, oh my gosh, I'm like, I don't know if I can do this. Like, I want to work with kids. I love kids. I always had a passion for working with kids. And one with the student just was really difficult, and you kind of get thrown into it. There's no training, there's no people that what's and so I went to the principal and I said, I don't know. I said I'd love to be somewhere where I could potentially learn, how to work with kiddos. In this self-contained autism classroom, and I I fell in love with it. It wasn't until I transferred to another school, and I absolutely phenomenal ever did in my bachelor's degree. She taught me everything I know about working with kids, having expectations, helping them thrive. And so I was working with her, and I still was going to school trying to do like this, and I got sick. I got ovarian cancer at 26. It was pretty bad, and I had to take a semester off school. And that semester I took off school changed my life. And I just, being with the kids and seeing the impact that I had on them, and seeing how much, they meant to me during that time, and how priceless it was to be able to know you changed a life. After that semester that I took off, I went back and I said, I want to be a teacher. My advisor laughed at me. He laughed at me. He's like, what? He's like, come on, you're going to go do pre-med? And I said, no, I want to be, I said, this is what I want to do. I said, I want to open a school one day, and I want to change kids' lives, and to school to be a teacher, and went through schooling and didn't 2 years ago.
That's awesome. Yeah, so I mean, you had the idea to get to that school point the entire time. I think of stuff like that all the time because if somebody hasn't done it, then it's impossible for them to tell you, whether you can or cannot, but yet they always want to. And it's like,
Yeah.
listen, I get it. It's a work in progress, but the more that I learn and move forward towards it, you never know what you'll accomplish. Actually, it's funny because while I'm doing this, Jasmine is with her mom working on an episode for her podcast because she saw mine and decided that she wanted to start her own. So we went through the whole things for her to kind of
Oh,
set
I
it up
love it.
herself, and it's specifically kind of what you were talking about and I do it with all my kids, not only all my kids, but any young man or woman that I run into that's looking for kind of guidance in life is the way that you set goals to achieve them. So like, hey, it's one thing if you say some shit. Hey, I want to do this. I don't just say stuff. I say, let's do it right now.
Yeah.
Let's put together the plan so that we can do it, so that you can understand how hard it is or how easy it is, and let's start going through those steps. But so you knew the entire time that you wanted to open a school. I figured like it was you were at the first school and you were just like, you know what, forget this. I need a school.
Yeah, no, I just kind of was like I always knew I wanted more kids, more families, more parents, and more teachers. And so what I learned is that, when I was working in the school system, and I was an assistant myself through school, raising a child, and and I learned that, you touch those 9 kids' lives that are in your class, and then they move on to the next class, and that's not always a great class. It's last, and so they would move on, and then like what happens then? And then that you because they're not in the same structure or the same environment. And so that was cool, really. And so I always had that, goal to do that. And it was funny because when I went into teaching my first year, I remember telling my best friend, I said, I'm going to teach for 5 years. That's it. 5 years in a classroom. I mean, I'm one of those people that I'm just always trying to learn more, move forward. I can't stay stagnant. I can't be still for a long period of time. And so I said, I'm going to give it. And I think it was 5.5 years is when I left the school system. Business partner and I opened the camp, and then towards opening the school. So, you always have to have that goal, and just like I do with the kids, and help them move towards it.
Certainly, certainly. Do you hold any specific special like certifications for autism, or do you have to hold specific certifications to work in your school? Because I have a lot of friends that are teachers up north that they're always like, "Oh, I might come down there," and I'm like, "Oh, well, teachers make a good amount of money down here, especially compared to up north, and especially compared to what you can do with it down here."
Yeah, so I have a master's in special education, but I also have a master's in educational leadership, so that I can be a principal in the state of Florida. I hold my license for that. You don't actually have to have that for a private school, but I wanted to because I wanted to understand the structure of how a school runs, other than aside from the children, the budget, the financial piece, all of that. And so to work at the school, we prefer that a teacher has a 4-year degree, preferably in special education. But we are really looking, just that piece that people have, where they're willing to be coachable and learn, and really go through a program to be the best they can be for the kids. So like one of our teachers has a bachelor's in behavior development, and has a family member that's on the spectrum as well, so has a lot of experience in that way. So it's not always specifically a teaching degree, but we just try to look for those unique people that want to come work at a very unique school, because I mean we're the only school in Pinellas County that's specifically for children with autism. There's no other school like it in Pinellas, and we're just really thankful to be able to give back to these kids.
Unquestionably. I mean, aside from the school, that, like I said, me firsthand seeing your demeanor and the way that you take on the challenges when it comes to the kids, I know that it's going to be completely different anyway. So I guess inside of what you said, because you did say like a lot of different things that you did specifically to open a school, what do you need specifically to open a school? Like, say somebody just wanted to open a school tomorrow.
So I mean, it's actually not extremely difficult, but we're taking the McKay Scholarship and the Gardner, so we have to go through a lot of the state regulations with the Department of Education. So I mean, our first challenge was the building space. The previous building we were going to utilize fell through. And so then we went out and we're really looking for a building space to rent. And it was just kind of crazy. I mean, we'd have to pour like $100,000 into renovating a building to make it a school to meet code. It's where we ended up deciding to purchase a building. And so you have to meet all building code for all the inspections, radon inspection, just to make sure everything, the facility's safe. And then just going through the VEX program to make sure, which is like a background check program nationally for the FBI, to make sure everybody
Yeah.
is, good in that aspect. And then just really, I mean, creating the budget and running through the budget. I mean, it took us 9 months to create our business plan and our budget, and it's just always in pieces. So it really took the last 2 years we've been working on this to open our doors in August. So it's definitely not a fast and if it is a fast process, it's probably not done right.
Unquestionably, and then they throw coronavirus on top of you. Hey, open up! All those
Yes.
books you read, throw them out.
Yes, I know, I know. We have a Ohio that is the president of some schools up there, and we were talking the other day, and she said to me, she's like, I mean, it's overwhelming and crazy opening a school. She's like, but during this time, she's like, you guys are amazing, like rock stars, you know? So
So,
definitely made it.
what are, in doing this, a lot of the kind of misconceptions you hear when it comes specifically to autism by teachers, by parents? Because when most people hear it, then especially from us up north, like you immediately equate it to like Doug Flutie and Flutie Flakes, and then you think like,
Mhm.
okay, this kid can't talk at all. So what are like different things that you've heard, and how do you kind of dispel those rumors?
So one of the biggest things I see is, I mean, and even with parents, my child gives eye contact and my child's social, so they can't be on the spectrum, or my child has empathy, or that kids on the spectrum don't have empathy. And that's actually a huge misconception. First of all, I know a lot of students that give great eye contact, better eye contact than myself probably. It just really depends on who they are. Every kid is unique, and children with autism do have empathy. It's just shown differently sometimes. And sometimes you really have to just spend time with them to really get to know them and who they are and how they show that empathy. Because we have seen amazing things happen at our, some of our students or campers that are higher functioning paired with some of our students who aren't as verbal or are on the lower end of the spectrum. And I mean, they're playing together, making friends, they're peers, they have friendships, they're playing games together, they're engaging, and they have a ton of empathy for their peers. So that's probably one of the biggest misconceptions. It doesn't always look the same, but
Mm-hmm.
it is there. Is, that whole he knows better or she knows better, or that drives me crazy. It's actually in one of my trainings for the teachers. I don't ever want to hear that phrase. Because they're not thinking about it. They're being impulsive. They're not able to regulate themselves. And so they're not thinking about if they know exactly what to do because they're in a situation that's preventing that.
Yeah.
So, that just, I don't like to hear those sayings. And that's is, let's not say that they know better. Let's teach them how to handle that in the situation that they're in. Um, some other misconceptions is that, children that are nonverbal don't have anything to say. They have a lot to say, and it's our job, I think, as educators and just as human beings to help them figure out what they have to say to us, whether that's with a device, whether it's whether it's typing on an iPad. I mean, there's so many different methods, and they have so much. Every child on the spectrum is has a lot of potential and a lot of. We have this school because we want to help these kids. We want to see them thrive, and you don't see it enough out there. You just don't see it.
Yeah, unquestionably. I mean, I know when I was younger, we had like a entire week, like a disability week. That wasn't really part of it at the time, but as I grew older, when I got to high school, because I was born in '83 as well, so we're pretty much the same age. Um, we had I had spoken specifically with a social worker who was pretty much responsible for changing my life. His name is John Anstey, and he was telling me about two kids that were in the school that had Asperger's, which obviously now Asperger's falls under autism spectrum. Um,
Hmm.
one of them was a math genius, and I mean like any question you could ask him, it's answered without paper, without anything, within 2 minutes. And the other one was all about like just dinosaurs, everything dinosaurs, all the time
Yeah.
dinosaurs. And they'd
Yeah.
be in math class, talk about dinosaurs, and they're trying to organize it from them. But I think exactly like what you said, there was a kid when I was in camp, he had Tourette syndrome. And they had his assistant come and explain everything to the people in the camp, and they gave us all a cup with dry ice in it. And they said, "We need you to stop this ice from steaming, and you don't get anything." So that was the perspective they kind of put to everybody, where it was
Yeah.
like, "Yeah, you couldn't stop it, could you?" Well, that's
Yeah.
what it's like for him to be acting on his emotions, and I just think that you know it really is going to come to people wanting to open their eyes to learn as much as you want to teach. And when it comes to that point, we'll be, a better country, let alone a better school system.
Yeah, I agree, and that's why, we really are going to we pride ourselves on being a training hub. I mean, we want our teachers to stay with us, we want our staff to stay with us, but at the end of the day, if we can teach them how to better educate children with autism and then they go out and into the public school system or they go open their own school, I mean, that's just one more person that's out there that knows how to help, and so we want to be a training facility. We want to invite people in to be able to come in and see how we do things and learn from that, and hopefully one day be able to go out and consult with different school districts to go into their programs and help better them and help better the teachers as well. I had this kid in this pre-K class that I worked in a long time ago. It was one of the first kids that I worked with, and 3 years old, and he had minimal language, just more sounds. And his mom wanted him to communicate. She wanted to give him a voice because he had a lot of behaviors. He couldn't ask for things that he needed, things that he wanted. So she started doing the PEX program, which is the
Yep.
picture exchange communications. And so everybody told her that he couldn't do it because he was very sensory and, kind of all over the place at times. And everyone said, he's not going to be able to do it. He's not going to be able to carry that book around. And so, anyways, she spent probably about 6 months on just basic. I want Pop Tart. I want Cheez-Its. I want to eat. I want to drink. And so he started bringing the book to school. Well, it was when I was sick, and so I was out for a few weeks, and so I didn't see him. And one first day I came back, I walked in, and this kid, 3 years old now, nonverbal, with his PECS communication book, hasn't really used it for too much other than asking for food and drinks. And I walk in, and he sees me, and he's just smiling from ear to ear. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I missed you so much. I want to like run up to him and hug him. And he runs up to me with his book, and he puts it down on the ground, and he's flipping through all the way to the back. And at the back were pictures, our pictures of the teachers that he had, and he had never used them before. And he gets out my picture and puts it on his sentence strip, and he gets out, I want and hug, and he gives it to me. I want hug, Miss Harris. And that was his first time communicating anything other than food and water. And that was the moment that really changed my life. That was when I went to my advisor and I said, I want to be a teacher because this is the impact that not just the education can have on them, but the connection that you form with them. And that's really, having that connection, that bond that I was on for 3 weeks. And, this amazing little boy, he remembered me, he loved motivation for him to communicate.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, I completely see that situation and how it can change everything. Because I do a nonprofit in Costa Rica. We teach like 300 kids a year, health and wellness. We bring football players, and we kind of communicate with them throughout the year as well. I've had to move it obviously twice since now, so it's not until November. So I mean, I've been working with kids since I was early in high school. We did like a peer education program. We would travel school to school and teach them kind of how drugs can affect your life negatively and different outlets on how to handle your anger and stuff like that, which I'm working on every day, even now.
Amazing.
But
That's amazing.
um, I feel like you have found a happy medium behind love and discipline when it comes to especially autistic kids, because specifically in the case of Jasmine, like when people encounter her, they're like, what do you mean she's autistic? Because, the first time you meet her, she's talking normal, regular, and because of those
Yeah.
misconceptions, everybody just thinks like they're supposed to see something so glaring that, oh, something's wrong here. But do you think that we're sheltering them too much? Do you think that there's a way that, not in the case of me, but like in terms of what you see on an average with parents, that there's certain aspects in which they certainly can push more and they're just not?
Yeah, I mean, I think with parents, I mean, it's hard, it's difficult. I think in my experience, when parents have the right kind of direction, they're absolutely willing to push their kids. I think it's hard, I mean, for any parent because, we love our kids and we don't want to see them hurt or in pain. And I think with a child with autism and you're trying to push them, it's a lot different. It looks a lot meltdown and crying and upset, then you kind of want to back off because you don't want to see your child like that. And I think also, parents don't have the resources or they have people telling them, well, you need to get them to go to the bathroom on the toilet. You need to get them to sleep in their own bed at night, but they don't have somebody physically helping them or walking them through all of those situations. And so they just don't have the support. And when it becomes difficult, it's easier for them to just let the child sleep in their bed or just to put on a pull up. But time
Yeah, I
consuming
mean, you're
because it
getting
takes a
caught in your life. You're trying to do your work. You're trying to do everything you can. It's funny because
yeah,
I just got a comment in the live, and it said the popular examples are extreme. For example, Rain Man. So when people look
yes,
at stuff like that, there's no middle ground. It's the same way that I got put in special education. There's no me. So like
yeah.
I imagine like in the case of like the Asperger's, there's no you depicted on TV or in a way that somebody can go, oh, okay, well that's how it is. It's just like you're a fully silent kid or you're a fully running around kid, and everybody in between is kind of lost in the fold.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you. There isn't really a good depiction out there. I mean, every kid is just so unique and the spectrum is so wide that it's really, I mean, no child looks the same. And a lot of the kids that sort of fall through the cracks or get lost are the higher function children because they get put out in Gen struggling and they're being, an issue, and they're trying to help them, but they can't, but they don't want to put because, they feel like they don't fit there. And so they really get shuffled around and lost. And I mean, there's plenty of other issues in self-contained, and for students that on the other end of the spectrum, notice with the higher functioning kids, a lot of times they get lost out in gen ed in the middle school and they're just not able to survive. They get bullied. I mean, a lot of other.
What's self-contained?
So self-contained is when it's on the autism spectrum, like what my class was. That was a self-contained class. It's only children on the spectrum. Or another, in our county, it looks like that. Another county, it looks different. Like you said, they don't have just autism classes. They have classes for children that are intellectually disabled or children that have a disability, and they're just all together in one class.
Unquestionably. I mean, yeah, and I imagine that there's a bunch, especially in like Florida, a bunch of people that just fall through the cracks of never even being diagnosed in the first place.
Absolutely, especially girls. I mean, girls are underdiagnosed, absolutely, and most girls don't get diagnosed until they're 19, 20, and they're seeking diagnosis by, on their own as
They
they,
just feel something's wrong. Yep.
so well, and they'll mimic what they see in other girls, and it just looks very different. A lot of times, I've heard a lot of older, women now in their adulthood saying that they were diagnosed with anxiety and depression when now they've been diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder. So it just looks so different.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. What do you think, or have you heard of the term Indigo Children?
No, I have not actually.
I guess it's kind of a term that's being kind of equated to a lot of autism spectrum kids as being like almost superheroes. Like for instance,
Okay.
in the case in which I've seen with Jasmine, she's never been sick. And when I mean never been sick, I mean like I have not seen a runny nose. So
Yeah.
I've kind of weighed that out and done some research on it and seen that type of thing where obviously, like for instance, when I was speaking about the kid that knew math, like he knew math more than the teachers in the school, and we're talking about a top 10 public school in the United States. So what do you do? Like, do you just drag him along, or is she obviously he should be teaching a class at some point? So we should get him into a point
Yeah.
where he can teach it.
Yeah, I mean yeah, they definitely have those splinter skills and those definitely those strengths that you want to hone in on. I mean, I know, a child on the spectrum that's an amazing drummer. I mean, amazing. It's like you want to take those skills and help them you to take those skills and utilize them for potentially could help them have a job when they're older or give back to the community when they're older. I mean, you really want to hone in on what those strengths are for sure. I mean, I have so many different kids that have come across in my life that have different skills like that. Either they're amazing at math, and it's not because they've even, that any teacher has taught them that. They've gone and learned it on their own. I mean, they've gone online and they watch all different kinds of math
Mm-hmm.
videos and engage in different classes. They just learn it by themselves. I mean, I had a student 2 years ago who read high school level. I mean, his fluency was insane. He was 5 years old
Yep.
and he read at a high school level. He's an amazing reader. So it's like taking that and being able to use it for something that's purposeful, because it's great if they can do it. But then if it's just always like this hobby that they do, or it's a skill they have, but it doesn't bring purpose to their life, then it's no better than the other skills that they don't have. So using it to find purpose and be able to use that strength to push them, to help them get a job when they're older, that's what we always look to do is what are their strengths and how use those strengths to propel
Unquestionably.
them
I
to the
feel
next level.
like when it comes to that type of thing that we are and like I watch a lot of like crazy conspiracy shows and stuff like that when it comes to certain things that are incomplete in the world or certain things that we don't understand that maybe some of these people will understand, but because we are too busy trying to normalize them into society and telling them no, you have to learn how to read like this or you have to learn how to jump like this, that we miss what's so special and then therefore go, hey, you know what, this is so special that you need to be at another level of special. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, you have to be an outside of the box thinker to educate children with autism, in my opinion. You have to be willing to think of really creative ways to get the information from them to help them communicate do know and what they can learn. Because I my business partner's son, he is on the spectrum, and he's an amazing artist. He has some really cool art, and he could sit there and draw all day. I mean, he's amazing at it. I love seeing his art, and we have this curriculum that we use that you describe a picture verbally to a child, and they have to draw it how they're
How they
hearing it
visualize it,
from
yeah.
you. And so we have the picture and we're looking at it, but they haven't seen it at all. And he drew the exact replica of this picture without seeing it based on what I said to him. And, and he has verbally, he is probably around a five-year old level verbally. And he's 13. But everything I said when it has to do with
Yeah,
art,
he locks in.
and he can visualize it in his mind, and he drew an exact replica, and I was like highly impressed. I'm like, this is amazing. Think outside the box, and you have to be willing to step out of your comfort zone. Well, maybe this way, so let me go other ways and learn it, and maybe it's a way I don't know, but you have to go out and look for that and research it and figure it out and then present it to the child.
Just the fact that you said that alone speaks volumes. Because when you can say that you don't know something and you need to research it, it always is going to make you better. When you say that you know everything, the world is ever growing and changing. And the way that you spoke to that kid and art specifically, I talk a lot about music and hip hop and me not understanding what makes people famous or not. And I tell every time I talk about it, I tell a story about. I don't know if you've heard this story. There is an autistic kid that did a one-time helicopter flyover of Lower Manhattan and then landed it and redrew the entire thing on a wall.
Yes, I did. I
And
saw
that
that.
to me is, how is that not more special than a Picasso?
Yes, it's absolutely amazing. And I think if people take the time out to truly get to know some of these kiddos and, connect with them, they will let you see their gifts. And I believe every single one of them have a gift to share with us and bond with them and make them feel comfortable to a point where they're willing to share, because they are connected. And I know for every child that is important to have that connection. But for children on the spectrum, I more so, even more so, because their whole life they've gone through, feeling like they're not being heard, they're not being understood, and that they can't communicate. And so when you show them that you're willing to take, that extra time to truly listen to what they're trying to say or trying to sign or trying to spell, they know that you care, and then they'll be willing to show you their true gifts.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Um, oh shit. Hold on, loosen up. My tooth pain's starting to come back.
Oh no, that's the worst. Tooth pain is the worst.
I listen. I've had five. I have four crowns. I've had five root canals, and this is the worst. It's just me mismanaging my young kid life and thinking that I could just eat
Yes.
anything at any given time.
You know that, and you don't want to hear that, and then when you're older, you pay for it.
For sure. So let's get back to the school. What, as far as the state of Florida, are they telling you now you need to be that you need to do to be open?
So we have to follow I mean, we're following the CDC recommendations, obviously, with taking into account our students have, a disability where, they do see our faces, and they do need to make sure they can read our lips and that they can see our so, and they also, have a lot of sensory issues. I mean, and sensory dysregulation and sensory processing disorder. So wearing a mask all day is extremely difficult for, probably 90% of our students. Now, some can,
Mm-hmm.
beyond to make sure our student population is safe. We're doing temperature checks in the morning and in the middle of the week, and students. We're doing a wellness check every in, saying they haven't flown out of state anywhere, they're not having any symptoms. We have the UV lights in the air systems that kills all the bacteria. We're wearing face shields. We got hand sanitizer. He's got their own. beyond to make sure our students and staff are safe, because that's first and foremost, obviously. As far as stipulations, I mean, we had into the Florida Department of Education saying, this is what we're doing, this is when we're opening, these are the precautions we're taking. And so that was pretty much what we had to do in order to make sure that we were, because the emergency order is for us to open. They want schools to open brick and mortar 5 days a week. And so they approved the plan that we put in place with all the CDC recommendations for sure to keep everyone safe.
Okay. What do you feel specifically that you guys are bringing to the table that nobody else has? I mean, I personally already know, but if you had to pitch yourself and say like, "This is my school," fuck all these other schools.
So I mean, we are all about students thriving, and our foundation is social behavior and communication. So we are all about, we do social skills do behavior skills classes every day, and we work communication, and most of our curriculums embed language, and they are utilized and designed specifically for children with autism. So we're not taking something that was designed for a child with a learning disability and trying to use it with a child with autism. These were actually research validated for children with autism to show that it does help them learn and help them understand and help them with their language. So, I mean, we're all about children thriving. I mean, high expectations. We have high expectations for our kids, for our staff. And I'll be in every classroom training every teacher, working with every teacher. And I've already trained, I mean, one of our teachers I've worked with for 5 years. The other one we hired the beginning of the year, and we worked with her at camp and did training through camp as well. So, I mean, we just want every student to thrive, and we have the staff, we have the curriculum, and we have the foundation of giving them what a good academic program, but our academics are infused into our social behavioral program. So that's first and foremost. The kids, they need that, how to engage with people, how to act, behaviorally, how to regulate themselves, how to use strategies when they're out in public. Because, a lot of times, our guys get strategies that they can use when they're feeling
Yep.
upset or a meltdown, but they don't work when they're out in the community. They can't always, they don't always have an iPad with them, or they don't always have this
Yep.
teach them things that they can then generalize. Once we get through everything, a really good, solid community-based instruction program, and we're going to be partnering with different businesses out in the communities out there. Like I said, once we get past and through all this, and maybe that'll be in the following school year, getting them out there and getting them volunteering and working, and making partnerships in the community for them to understand what they can do when they're older.
It's funny you say that because I actually forgot a question, but because you said that, reminded me of it. Because when you get out and work in those certain type of atmospheres, and I know I've seen as of recently that schools are talking about just dropping teaching kind of reading an analog clock or like the cursive
Yes.
aspect. What do you think of the clock thing?
I think kids need to know how to read an analog clock. I mean, I know that we have our phones and we have our, digital clocks that we can look at, but sometimes, I mean, that's all there is to look at, and you're not going to understand the time. I mean, I think it's important, and I think kids step, you're teaching analog clock it, and you just do both at the same time for sure.
Yeah, I mean, unquestionably, you're talk. I think everybody just looks at the world as if we're already here, so it's always going to stay like this, not realizing that you might have to read a sundial. Trump's the president.
Yep, exactly. You never know. I mean, you never know what, you know, one day there might be that there are no digital clocks, and the, batteries have gone out, and you have no idea what time it is, and you're running late for
And
something. I
all those
mean,
back survival skills. I feel those are always going to be important, but it's like we're being pushed into a area where it's like everybody just sit down, we will handle this, and you're like, I want to handle it too. Like I want to have a part
yeah,
in my own life other than you telling me what I need to eat and you telling me when I need to. I mean, coronavirus, it shows us like a lot of who's really in control and what you can do, where you can go in this free country.
Yeah. Yep.
I feel that, in my opinion, at least, what in with the people with autism that I've encountered, including my daughter, that it's always like a usual one thing that everybody gets kind of locked in, focused on, and I'm always fighting in my household to make that thing more something that can be used as a societal tool than
Yeah. Something that's
babies.
purposeful for sure.
So it's
Yeah.
very hard because I'll get into it, with my daughter, where it just looks like anger from my part, and I'm just like, no, like I'm trying to. I wish you could be like, I know we try millions of things. We, like, right now she's doing like a bunch of STEM stuff, and I have friends that run full STEM programs, so I get a lot of great ideas that I can kind of bring into the house. And I used to love STEM and hands-on stuff when I was little more than anything. So we try to do that
Yeah.
aspect of everything to go like, okay, let's kind of take a step towards this. And then of course, mom is a designer. She's basically taking the classes that she's basically an architect. So we try to bring, because I know specifically with Jasmine loves to build houses and stuff like that. So we try to teach her
Hmm.
every aspect of it. This is how you do it. And I can remember when I was a kid, one of the things I can bring back the things that I remember from school, especially high school and grade school, on maybe one hand, and they were all hands on. It was all like, I'm locked
Yeah.
in and I'm paying
Yeah.
attention now.
Absolutely. Yeah. I feel the same way. I mean, yes, a lot of kids on the spectrum often have that one or two things that they love and that they want to know more about, and they can almost become obsessive or becomes repetitive with what they're into. And I believe that you can take that and build and as a starting point for us, like you said with your person that you went to high dinosaurs and they loved dinosaurs. And so sometimes where we start, we get down with the dinosaurs and we're just playing with them, or we start, spewing off facts and talking about different things that, we looked up 5 minutes before on Google so that we can have something to
Yep.
connect with them with. And so, that's where we start. But I do think it's important to expand from that because, not everybody is going to be into that one thing. So that's going to limit them on their social interaction. I think it's important to expand from that because, they should be exposed to other things, and potentially one of those something that they love. Those little, those things that they know a lot about and they're very intelligent with, and that can be used for a purpose. I mean, I have a camper that just absolutely loves trains and knows about trains
Yep.
that you could probably possibly know. But I do believe there's a purpose for that. I mean, you can build off of that, and maybe one day he'll be a train conductor or he'll design, better type of railroad that can be utilized somewhere. I mean, who knows? But trying to make it purposeful, most important piece, and not letting it just be to or focus on. I mean, you have to find purpose. And I believe that in everything we do, it has to have a purpose.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny you say that because, like, in a lot of the research I do, when we fly, like, our spaceships, we're using the same technology from Werner von Braun that was in like the late 70s. So now
Yeah.
when you go from the late 70s to now, the late 70s, in order to get 1 gigabyte of like memory space, was what's called like a ejector machine that looks like a vending machine that would take a
Yeah.
like gig drive and put it in another place so you had that much memory. And now it's down to the size of an SD card that's like this, but yet we're still using the
Yes.
same rocket technology from then. And I feel like it has so much to do with us hindering people that are smarter than us. It's like these people are smarter than us. That kid that I knew that did math was smarter than everybody in the school when it came to math. But yet we're
Yep.
saying, this is a detriment as opposed to holding him up to answer questions that we might not have the answers to yet.
Oh yeah, I agree. I mean, I agree with you, and I think that I think that's where it really comes into play. The piece that I was talking about with the social and communication piece, because I see a lot of our guys that get older and they're extremely intelligent. 145, 155 IQs, but they don't have the tolerance level to be able to, in a college setting, and they don't have the behavior skills or they don't have the communication skills to even let people know like what they want, and what they want to strive to be. And so I think that's why it's so important that when they are going through school, that there be an emphasis on the aspect of their, as a teenager or a young adult, they're not able to utilize some of these skills they have because they don't have the behavior and the communication piece. They don't have the social piece, and that inhibits them. And I think that, especially in the world today, I mean, everybody's always trying to be first. And so, no one's really going to take the time out to help anybody to be first.
Especially in
And so
America.
they
There's
have
no
to be
question
able
about
to
that.
do that for themselves, and have people like us in their corner that are willing to take the time out to show them that and teach them that and get them to the point where they can be
Yeah.
first.
I mean, oh damn, that's so true. Uh so two more questions. Fun stuff. Well, the first one's
Okay.
not fun actually. It's just a regular question. I have spoken with some parents just like in terms of different thoughts about different ways that they've influenced their specific kids that are on the spectrum. And one that I've heard recently is that gluten free, no sugar, has seen completely different results, and to the point where they knew like, oh, you had sugar today. I don't know if that's kind of, you were riled up on sugar, but I don't know if you know anything as far as that or have done any research when it comes to that.
Yeah. So, I actually celiac disease, so I'm gluten free, which, has helped me immensely with inflammation. But what's behind that, sugar, dairy, it causes inflammation in the body. And so it's sort of back in the research and everything that inflammation can build up on your brain, it can build up on your stomach, especially for children with autism. They have a lot of gut issues. And so when that inflammation builds up, it can cause or be one of the causes of, I mean, even and that can cause behaviors and just being uncomfortable. And if they're not able to communicate that, I'm not saying that every child with autism should be on a gluten-free diet, but I think you have autism or not, limiting sugar and dairy is beneficial. I mean, I found it beneficial for myself, but it just comes back to the inflammation that it causes. And I have campers and a lot of students at the school that are on gluten-free and dairy-free and sugar-free diets, and I can definitely tell when they've had it, or if they've had a cupcake the night before. Some extreme changes in kids, and then in other kids, you don't see behavioral changes where they start talking more, or they're able to receive more information. Amazing. This is where it hasn't had a great effect. Sugar as much as limiting process and gluten dairy free is definitely
You hear
beneficial
that,
to
Jazz?
you kids.
No, I mean, if she's gonna do it, I'm gonna do it. Which, once again, it's been my entire life trying to dodge sugar. I wish, hopefully, I could do it. If we're gonna do it, we're gonna do it together. So, first of all, you're the only black woman I've ever seen with celiac disease, just for comedy purposes. And second of all, oh, you hear me? I think I lost you. You back?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yep. Well, you look like you're like in some red lights and stuff now.
I know. I'm not sure what's going on with
Disco
that.
ball. So, last question of the night. You either get your best Karen story or your best crazy teacher to parent story.
Okay, so my craziest moment as a teacher.
You don't have to mention names or anything like that.
Um,
We protect the innocent until proven guilty.
let's see. I don't know. I mean, it's just there's so much that happens. I mean, I truly. in my whole time teaching, I have always wanted to write a book, going off of the name of the organization, but Autism Speaks, because I just think some of the things that, families really have no. You have a child on the spectrum that's pretty
For sure.
verbal. I mean, we hear everything that happens, and they just tell it all. And we have some, great things, some great conversations that come up in the classroom. But yeah, I don't know. I don't think I really have a too crazy of a story. I'm always so boom, 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 and it's like get them in and connect and get to know them and start, working with them to push them forward. We've definitely had some fun times with the kids and just listening to the different stories. But I do love to tell parents, I'm like, there's no secrets in your household when the kids come to school, because they just don't know what they're supposed to say. They'll say something, the kids will say, no, you told us not to say that, or we're not supposed to talk about that, or. So excited to get some things going at the school.
Have you been to back to the UK since you were 10?
I have. I went back when I was 17, and then I went back when I was about 22, 23. But I haven't been back in a long time, and I really want to go. I want to take my son and show him where I'm from and my history and background, because it's just so different. I do miss it. I miss the culture. I miss the people, my family, my friends out there. I still have friends out there from when I was 8 and 9 years old. So
Yeah.
it's just
I,
different.
I, I say that because, like, when you said earlier that it's hard to keep masks on the kids, like, it's hard to keep masks on adults, especially in the United States right now, where people are just freaking out in private stores and going crazy about masks. So, I mean, what is that showing to kids in general? And I wonder if that is kind of transferred to the way that people are in UK, because I haven't been there. I've traveled, but I haven't been there yet, so I don't know kind of how they handle stuff or how they are currently handling stuff.
Yeah, I don't know. They're just kind of staying and haven't really ventured out too much. I have been so swamped at the school that I feel like I am there from like 6 in the morning till 7 at night, and not really, able to talk to many people when there's a 5 hour. Thank God my son is driving, because he can take himself everywhere he needs to go right now while I'm focused on the school here. So it's just been a little crazy. I've kind of been away from it and focusing on just getting the kids back and making sure everybody's safe and
Certainly.
doing all that good
Well,
stuff.
that was the last question. It was everything I dreamed of. Thank you for everything that you do, and thank you for putting your heart and soul into this school. Obviously, I stand behind you. I'm going to donate when I get off this, and I'm going to make sure that everybody else donates that was watching this as well. Like I said, the Autism Inspired Academy in Clearwater. If you're in Florida and you have an autistic child, send them. They can come meet my child. Um, Actually, you know what?
Yeah,
Before I get
please
off,
do.
one of the biggest things that I did see a change when you left was the Girls on the Run program. Socially was great for Jasmine specifically. So if there's a way
Yeah,
that you can tie that in, please do.
awesome. Yes, we will definitely look into it, and we're also going to be opening a Navigators chapter soon here, scout group and things out in the community. We're
And then I guess one question that I missed that I want to ask is if somebody wants to volunteer there and learn from somebody like you and learn the policies from somebody like you, do they need to be carrying some type of certain certification?
so they application and getting background check, do those things and come in for the initial meeting and training. Hopefully learn from us and learn from my staff, and then go back out into the community and teach other people.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I mean, that is it. Thank you. Um,
Thank you
Definitely
so much
very
for having
informative. I
me.
loved it.
Appreciate it.
And like I said, I'll make sure that we do the donations and you just keep doing what you're doing and changing the world.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
No
Thank you. Thank
problem.
you.
Have a great night.
All right, you too.
Bye.